Kennedy is the chairman, National Resistance Movement, Washington, D.C. We have Dr. Agnes Kaziba. I hope that's the right pronunciation.
Yes,
right. She is the head legal Boston National Unity Platform. We have, I don't know if Albert will join us, but yes, we expect Albert Bakasara, former Deputy Speaker, UNA. He's also a civil servant, community leader, activist, and all that. We have, we expect, yes, Harold Kaija, Deputy Secretary General of the FDC here in Uganda. We have Rugaba John Paul. He's the Alliance for National Transformation Diaspora in China. He's a traveler, a leader, software developer, and writer. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very privileged to have you once again here on the Uganda Diaspora. You can follow the conversation on social media. If you go to hashtag Uganda Diaspora or hashtag Civic Space, and very many others, especially the Center for Constitutional Governance, because we're going to have a wonderful conversation. Today's topics, we have three of them. Interestingly, the shrinking political space in Uganda. Then cabinet proposals. That was actually in an alleged leaked document from cabinet on bail cancellation and denying bail to capture offenders. That is one of the interesting conversations we're going to have. Then also, Dr. Kizza Besigye, yes, has launched a new opposition formation, and that is the People's Front for Transition. So we are going to look at those three particular interesting topics, and we want to understand how then do we move forward as a country with all that in our space. Let us quickly start with shrinking political space. I want to welcome you once again. Those of you who have joined us, you can follow conversations on social media, Center for Constitutional Governance on Twitter and Facebook, hashtag Uganda Diaspora, hashtag Civic Space TV. And then we'll see, get more of your contribution from wherever you are. Now, shrinking political space precisely means a concept or framework that captures the dynamic relationship between repressive methods and political struggle, including the ways in which political struggle responds to these methods to reclaim space and the impact this response has upon how political struggles relate to one another. Now, if we could remember not so long ago, some 54 non-government organizations were suspended in Uganda. I hope you got the news there. Now, the NGO Bureau, the one that is mandated to register, regulate, monitor, inspect, and blah, 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 for these NGOs, said that the affected NGOs failed to comply with the laid down doctrines. So they were, closed down. As we start our conversation today, I don't know, what makes us think that the political space in Uganda is shrinking very fast? Because I have been reading and everybody seems to say the same. But what are the indicators? I want to start with you, John Paul, in China. What are the indicators of a shrinking political space? For example, in Uganda, everybody's saying that is going down. What makes that?
To me, honestly, Uganda's political space has shrunk since 2001, when Besigye decided to contest for the presidency, and then afterwards he was arrested and put on charge in South Africa. That should have been an indicator for people then back then. The opposition to this government is taken in the same light as treason. We also go in the same docket of 2018 when everyone was arrested for treason and the thing that happened in Arua. The same thing can be said in 2016 also Besigye. And the government will bring the number of presidential candidates has increased, the number of representation of people empowerment has increased, women and this have increased. But also you want to know that this is a government that controls the army, the media, and the finance, basically the whole state. So if you want to contest on a fair ground, it's basically difficult because the media, if in 2016, when Komugisha wanted to put his state media, I'm talking about BBC.
I'm sorry, John Paul. I'm sorry to cut you short. I think your sound has a bit of a problem. It's quite, I can't hear you well. I don't know about others. Okay. Go on, please.
Okay. So I'm still giving the flashback to give the narrative of how space has been diminishing over the election. So an example of how the media is controlled by the state, much as privatization of various media enterprises. You would go to say 16, the opposition candidate, the leading opposition candidate by then was not allowed to televise his advert was UBC, which naturally is supposed to be a state television for all people of Uganda, despite the political affiliation. But it was also in the some songs from what he was, so this, in all these three areas, even the security process, I think the security process has been documented everywhere. I'm literally seeing even people who were able to see about the November killing and asking me, is this really happening? Like, it is true. So what's happening? We're just saying we are not happy with how we're being led. The finances, I think it comes to everywhere. The state uses the taxes of the people to finance their political campaign strategy. You know, we what is it that is our national ground, the ruling party and others have access to straighter roads to campaign. What is it that, you know, one may say that these political parties are not funded by being the diaspora. We do fund these parties, but then when they ask for permission to use other bigger platforms, they are not allowed. Same with, you know, the states, because the state during the election was great corruption. I'll give you the report of the EU during the previous election held in January about widespread corruption, especially in areas of Eastern and Western Uganda, giving people money. It goes the analogy of one of my respected comrades, Mr. P.L. Rugaba, who said, in Africa, it is interviewing people when they are poor because of the totally submissive. You don't get the financial elite class of people. So to me, it has been dwindling, and I don't see it in 2026 improving, basically, because I don't see 2026 improving, because I think the stress level will just diminish more. The government will want to keep on holding power, and we shall see draconian laws being passed by parliament to ensure that that remains the case. Yeah, so
John Paul, I think you will need to have to do something on your speaker. We can't really hear you properly. I see people in the chat room here saying they can't hear you as well. But thank you. Let's I beg your pardon. As you sort that, let me get to Agnes. Agnes, we are looking at a shrinking political space, and as we headed into the 2021 January polls, there were concerns that most political parties were not given space. People were not allowed to express themselves or, freely do what they had to do into the elections. There were lots of comments, even from the diaspora. People kept making noise that Uganda's political space is really shrinking and is stifled. What do you have to say?
Thank you very much. I actually disagree that the political space is shrinking. For something to shrink, it must have been big before. So the political space in Uganda is not shrinking; it's just shaking up and changing the shape. We believe that there has been a lot of politics going on in Uganda, but that there hasn't been a true opposition. If you look at the politics right now, there is NUP came up and has transformed politics, and the people of Uganda have NUP has involved and included a lot of people who were previously disenfranchised, and a lot of groups from different parts of the country have finally gotten involved into the political space. People with different backgrounds, people with, including the diaspora. For instance, the example in point is what you mentioned about the diaspora. The diaspora has existed for very many years, for decades, and the diaspora, no political party has ever organized the diaspora the way that NUP has. So it shows you, so the political space is actually expanding and including more people. But I think there is a small group of people who have previously been the key players in the political arena, and now that things are changing up, they see it as a shrinking space rather than a growing space that is just changing shape. So I personally believe that the political space is growing, and that more people, more Ugandans are getting involved in the leadership of their country and in determining their future. There are a few things that cannot go unnoticed. What you mentioned about the NGOs getting shut down, about the extreme censorship of speech and other political activities in Uganda, that definitely has to be seen as a threat to democratization. But it again doesn't go to show shrinking political space. Rather, it shows that the activities of the involvement of NUP has come to expose what was already going on. There was already extreme censorship. There was already extreme intolerance of political dissent, but that had not been exposed properly. Hadn't been exposed properly to within Uganda, and definitely not outside of Uganda. So this is really NUP really just uncovered what was already existing. And again, there has been a lot of politics going on, but in terms of what a true opposition is, we've seen that the actions of the conduct of the NRM has changed since NUP got into the arena, because the activities of NUP directly threaten the continued existence of the NRM, and it exposes all the weaknesses and the crumbling institutions that NRM has set in place, if we can call institutions at all. So again, I don't believe that the political space is shrinking. I think it's changing shape. I think that finally Ugandans are taking control of their destiny, and they're getting more involved, including Ugandans who are not in Uganda. And I think that is what I would call a political space that is more inclusive of different people, of different backgrounds, and not the disenfranchising political space that existed for decades since the 80s.
Right. Thank you very much, Agnes, for that. I like that you seem to think that the political space is instead growing and there are more political players on the field. So it has become more competitive, and therefore people need to stop saying it is shrinking, we need space. Fight for the space, and perhaps you will get to it. Now, allow me to speak to Miriam. Miriam, you have been in civil society for a while, and we noticed that as space to of course, for political actors is being attacked here and there. Civil society organizations are also being openly threatened and placed under excessive scrutiny by senior government officials. They're increasingly being accused of being agents of the political opposition or foreign powers to destabilize government. And I think this is where the aspect or the word that political space, started from is shrinking. So Miriam, what your take on that? While they hunt down civil society organizations, they seem to think civil society organizations are funding the opposition and equally, leading to other things. What do you have to say?
When it comes to Uganda political space, I think that it seems to be okay, like Ms. Agnes has said, there is an opening in diaspora, but when it comes to Uganda, inside Uganda, the space is getting smaller and tighter and more rough. We see more political harassment, like the civil societies are being hunted down. There are more draconian laws every day being opened up and being activated, some even which are silent are being used against politicians. We see political activists being kidnapped, no trial in court. The military is becoming more bold when it's hunting down the opposition. They are tried in court martials, whereas even if they are committed any crime, they should be going to normal civilian courts. They are being tortured. There is a lot of killing and no accountability. The civic space, like you said, is more organizations are being closed down. Even yesterday, some civil society organization, the members, that's what you are. The Constitution allows civil society to operate alongside the government, but we currently see the operating space, even if they create new laws and they keep to do whatever to make your operation really uncomfortable, and you try to follow each and every law, it's like you are headed into the tunnel. The more you follow them, the more the space is being closed out and closed out. And we don't know how far that is going to go from bad to worse going forward. Is it going to go any better? I don't think so. Do we see this parliament really standing up against the oppressive government? They are not doing much. The MPs are now being incarcerated for no reason. They can't even get bail. Those are their members. They've been protesting the parliament by the leader of opposition, but it didn't yield any effect. In the past, the MPs were respected, but that's not happening now. They are released by courts. They are kidnapped by the army on the court premises, taken back to prison, held in unknown places. The speaker complains that he's not even informed before the MPs are being arrested, which could be the procedure. The members of parliament, before you arrest them, you should inform the speaker that something is going on and we are taking one of your members to answer some questions. But that is not happening anymore. And the recent enactments or whatever proposals, I don't know at what phase they are right now by the cabinet and the president to cancel bail, could be seen like aiming at the political players more than the real criminals outside on the street. It's the political players who are going to be tried for treason, which is one of the listed elements there in the listed cases that the cabinet is pointing at. We see the political players are the ones which are framed for murder. They are the ones who are framed for rape. They are the ones who are framed. Even the criminals, the government is not even interested in the real criminals, like criminals which are hurting people out on the street. They are interested in hunting down the opposition. And they are charged for trumped up cases, like Bob Wine was charged for murder, possession of a gun he never possessed. We don't know how that case went even. It was never there. Recently, Kizza Besigye was, he had a case of treason, which the DPP apparently said they has lost interest. We don't even, you could see like all those were trumped up cases and they are leading nowhere. So the government is increasing to use the military forces, the extrajudicial powers in hunting down the opposition. How is the constitution, how is the parliament protecting the other political players apart from the ruling government, the ruling party? I don't see them coming forward to stop the NRM government from harassing the opposition. And I don't think that is changing soon. Maybe I'm pessimistic, Ms. Lynn.
Right, thank you, Miriam, there. You seem to think that the opposition is the only target here. And will that therefore mean that also civil society organizations are in the opposition? Or are you trying to say maybe the government is right this time around by saying that civil society organizations actually, sponsor and aid opposition parties? So if you say the attack is onto the opposition particularly, then that means the attack is on civil society organizations is also justified.
Can I answer that? I think I didn't cover that properly, but the civil society, actually the government seemed to be hunting anybody who can criticize it. And in this case, it's the civil society and the opposition players. And the civic space, it doesn't mean civil society doesn't limit to the NGOs. It could be the academic. We see like strikes at schools are really demonstrations. They are not even strikes. Suppressed brutally. There is no more. If you remember, like the NRM government of the 90s, early 2000 something, and compare it today, you no longer see that free, active political space, political debates that used to happen. As for civil society, for them, they say they are funded by donors to do ABCD, but the civil society is there to fight for whatever it is fighting for, and they have a mandate in the constitution. So if they were going against the law, the law should be used to control them, not the state. But the state is persecuting individuals for no reason, like Chapter 4, which was defending the political prisoners. So the opposition, because the civil society is coming in to, its voice is voicing against the excesses of the government, then the government and the civil society seem to be working for the opposition, but it's working for Ugandans and it's for stopping the abuses or excesses of the government where they are happening. And all those issues of say you are funded by donors, so it means you are aiding opposition. The government is also funded by donors. Are they also opposition? The donors just fund a project. If you say they are funding against human rights and the government seems to be the main player who is abusing the human rights, then you are the culprit here. And actually the issue is, can you stop abusing human rights? And we see civil society is going to be criticizing you in that aspect.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Miriam. Kennedy, are you with us or you're having a cup of coffee?
I am here.
Great, Kennedy. Glad. We've heard from Agnes, who says that she actually disagrees that the political space is shrinking. She rather says there are more political players on the playing field, and it is changing shape. Miriam seems to think that while all that is in place, the opposition is still under attack. And to you, Kennedy, we are seeing there's concern, there's growing concern that the political space in Uganda is growingly, shrinking, which of course the NRM seems to be, the perpetrator. And you, as the chairperson of the NRM, you have been an NRM person for a while. Do you agree with all these ideas?
Certainly not. I will totally disagree with all these. Am I on? Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. You can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I'll totally disagree with all these allegations. For one, which political space are we talking about? Uganda has the largest representation of every section of Ugandans. We have the representation of women, children, the youth, the elderly. Now, that is our representation as far as the political space is concerned. When it comes to the NGOs, which are heavily funded by foreign donors, who use these platforms to sometimes promote their own interests against the interests of Uganda, there is always a concern. But it is also unfair to say that there is a shrinking space for politics when actually you see political players changing parties like they're changing clothes. For example, Dr. Besigye recently launched the new party, the new movement. And what does that mean? He used the previous party he had. It didn't earn him mileage. Now he finds it appropriate to launch a new one, hoping that this could gain traction. But what does that tell you? It means that within this space called Uganda, you can actually employ politics and work with whichever party you come up with. Nope, the NUP was once called something else, and it was shifted, it was bought, So all this tells you that there is political space and there are political players and they are all on the stage. But you see what happens is, if you fail the exams, don't blame the school. There is a possibility that you did not study well. There is a possibility that you're not that smart. The idea that you have to insist that even without reading, even without doing your homework, that you can pass the exams is false. So here we have the biggest problem, which I see as an observer. When I look in, I find a a total discord in the way people function. I pay attention to what happens in the Western world versus what happens within our countries. And when you're in a line in the United States, when someone is ahead of you, whether they are young, old, short, or tall, you will stand behind them and wait in a line. In Uganda, I have seen some indiscipline in some quarters, whether you're in a bank or in a hospital, where someone comes and wants to run over you. Now, that is indiscipline, and some people want to forward that indiscipline into other areas. Okay, now you are in a political campaign. They tell you there is a pandemic, called COVID, that you cannot, gather people, and you insist that you're going to gather them. And definitely someone who is entrusted with the authority to manage that society will come in, and put in order. That does not mean persecution. It doesn't mean that they are refusing political active, the political actors. It means they're organizing a society. So lack of orderliness is partly responsible. I saw my lady friend there saying that it is only NUP that has organized the diaspora. No, that's not true. NRM has been functioning in the diaspora for a very long time. The only thing is that we never appear on the streets demonstrating to cancel aid for Uganda. No. We don't do that. We don't demonstrate to, to attack people, to do all these things that we see on camera. We operate to promote the interests of Uganda, to showcase the beauty of Uganda, to talk about the story of Uganda, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And it is always unfortunate that we try to write a story of Uganda with a full stop. Okay, Uganda is a continuing story. We don't have everything in place. We haven't done everything correctly, but we are continually trying to put things in order. And we pride ourselves of where we've come, where we've arrived. We are the most peaceful country in the world. And there is evidence for that. And we should be proud of that. It didn't come by accident. There are people who wake up every single day to make sure that Uganda is secure. And yes, someone talked about parliamentarians being arrested, and we are talking about 2 parliamentarians out of 500 plus. So if those 2 parliamentarians were arrested, it should be in the interest of every Ugandan to perhaps question why them, okay? And for us to imagine that parliamentarians don't commit crimes is an error in itself. So yes, we may have political disagreements, but I think in some cases we need to stand up and be strong, not to completely dismember everything that comes from the government. For me, I have this strong conviction that Uganda is a third world country. It has many weaknesses. And while that is true, there is so much that is covered every day to answer the errors, to correct the past and make the future a very good place to be. So, and there is sufficient evidence for that. Because not long ago, Uganda was a truly categorized third world country. Not anymore. We have factories that produce products in Uganda, where once upon a time we didn't have anything working. We have roads that connect the borders of the country, where once upon a time it wasn't the case. So we have a standing army. We are donating, peace to countries. We are sheltering people of the world. So these are tangibles. These are real things, and all these play within the framework of the, of politics that we are talking about. So when you talk about shrinking, it doesn't stand up. I think we need to pick ourselves up and get strong enough to say, you know what, I might not like the government of NRM, but at least it has come this far. And you look at the representation, of NUP, for example, a very new party on the stage, and they come up with a sizable number of, of parliamentarians. So how does that fit into the, the narrative of a shrinking political space? It just can't stand up. And for me, what I think is to agree that when you come last in a classroom, there is a possibility that you didn't do your best. And for you to claim otherwise is being disingenuous. So let us agree that Uganda has very many areas where we need to pick up and go forward. But at the same time, let us celebrate where we've come, where we are. Now, on this same space you are talking about, you are talking about the bail, and the discussion of the bail should go on. I think it is a very, very beautiful discussion. It is a discussion that...
I'm sorry, Kennedy. We're going to come to the bail issue in just a bit.
Okay. Yes.
I wanted us to conclude on this shrinking space.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any reactions to so far what we have covered in regard to the shrinking space.
I certainly do.
Please go on.
Thank you, Miriam. I would like to clarify or to shed more light. When I mentioned that the political space is non-shrinking, my view is that it has never existed in its true form. So for something to shrink, it must have thrived at some point. And my belief is that there hasn't been a political environment in Uganda where there is a true and genuine participation of all parties from different backgrounds and with different politics. And as we can see, like I said, NUP has come in and simply unveiled what was already going on. And I'd like to point out that the NRM has not just begun persecuting political opponents, and it has not simply just in the last election started to have intolerance for any political dissent. That has been going on for a very long time. It went on during the days of Kaira. It went on during the days of Joseph Luce. It's been going on. It's just not been so much in the limelight, in the media or in other forms. And of course, we have to understand that when the NRM came into power, there was no social media. There was barely any media. So it did a lot of, there was a lot of conduct on their part that went unnoticed or didn't get as much attention. And at some point, of course, when the NRM just came in, people had been through a long war and a lot of things had happened. And so they were not very willing to criticize the new government. And so a lot of things happened in the 80s and 90s, and they were not written down. They were not published or publicized. But again, I really disagree with the NRM member pointing out all the great things and asking us to celebrate the thriving political environment in Uganda when we have thousands of people who are illegally detained and have had no due process whatsoever. We have had people killed by the government. We have a government that militarizes against its own people. The days leading to the elections, we saw it looked like we were in Iraq. We had military tanks driving on the streets, both to intimidate people, but also to showcase their violent intentions to cap down any dissent. And so for the gentleman to come here and claim that Uganda is the most peaceful country on earth, that is deceitful. That is just, it's really despicable for anyone to think that way when the same person cannot even live in the country where it's the most peaceful. But I think that definitely I disagree with the celebration of what's going on. It's hard for us to sit here and celebrate when a lot of people's children have died simply for opposing the political, the NRM. When a lot of people's children are are continuing to be in jails, in detention centers, they're tortured. We've seen a lot of these stories, and they continue to happen. they continue to exist. You talk about the political environment, when we describe the political environment in saying that the NRM is allowing people to participate, the NRM is not allowing people to participate. We are participating despite the fact that the NRM is not letting us to freely participate. We also, the previous campaign where Mr. Chagulani was arrested several times, he was shot at by the government itself. And then we get the gentleman coming here and defending that as, the people with power trying to enforce the law on COVID, when the NRM was equally assembling people and gathering. So this is all, that is just disingenuous, and it's deceitful and misrepresenting to the people. We are continuing to thrive and to participate despite the fact, not because of, but despite the fact that the NRM has continued to show intolerance and to show and to use violence against its own citizens, unarmed citizens, to be clear, killing a lot of people during November 18 and 19 in 2020. A lot of people were killed simply for peacefully assembling. They didn't have any weapons. None of them was found with any weapons. And so this is a government that, if I hear anyone saying that Uganda is a peaceful country, I think that the person needs to reassess the situation and maybe get facts right before they can.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Can I say something? Can I quickly say something?
Yes, please.
Yes. I think I'll correct two areas of falsehoods. One, my lady panelist here, when you say that—
my name is, I would like to clarify, Lynn, if you don't mind, my name is Agnes. I really do not—
Agnes, my dear,
my lady
Agnes,
friend.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Yes. So one thing is, I don't live in Uganda, not for any other reason in the areas of politics. I'm a mobile citizen. I choose to be where I want to be, but I didn't run away from Uganda for lack of peace. That's one correction. So another correction is perhaps a clarification there. You said that you thrive despite all. And for me, that's precisely the point I was making, that politics is thriving in Uganda. And for that very reason, that yes, the government may want to impose, all the regulations, the stringent measures, you could call them, but you made it very clear that in spite of all that, you are thriving as an opposition party, and which is verified. What I will tell you is that if the government was hell-bent on refusing opposition, it would certainly refuse it. But the fact that you are operating within the space of Uganda's politics, that's a celebration right there. And as far as peace is concerned, this is non-negotiable. It is not even a matter of opinion. It is a fact. Where you have facts, you don't need opinions. Uganda is a peaceful country. It is not because someone in Nup said so. No, it is what is on the ground. And this is measurable. You see, this is where our opposition gets so confusing, that what is black will be blue just because you want it to be blue. No, here in Uganda, what we are saying is that we have very, very many areas to touch on. But I think it is equally important, even in the area of your politics, to say, what? The country called Uganda is peaceful. So let's start from there. I think you also want to claim that you're playing within, a functioning country. It does not mean that you have to build from scratch. No, I think you can oppose and still function in a working society. So,
all right, Kennedy, allow me to cut you short there. I think
please go ahead.
You have clarified on those two. Miriam, unless you have something, John Paul, do you have anything to add on to that? I want us to quickly run to another topic of discussion. Yes, Miriam.
A small comment on what Kennedy said. Kennedy, the absence of war doesn't mean peace. And who is having peace? The families whose members were murdered on the streets in cold blood, and there is no accountability, or the killers are not brought to justice. Who is having peace? The people of Masaka who are being chased by panga men, or the people who are dying of poverty. You see, peace is not measured by the absence of war or whatever. You just measure peace depending on the individual's welfare. And secondly, do we see any political party participating normally? You can't allow the political opponents to appear on radios or TVs. You can't allow them to have rallies. The RDCs will be arresting them. You can't allow them to operate or hold debates anywhere. That is not a free space. That is actually like a hijacked space. The ruling party is hijacking all the political space for itself and closing out other participants.
All right. Yes, John Paul.
Okay. My remark to my brother, Mr. Kennedy, is that when he said we are talking about the economic transformation that I usually see most people in the government talk about. But one thing you should know is that Uganda's inequality gap among the rich and those that don't have is widening at a very fast rate compared to our East African neighbors. And this is creating very many social issues. Right now, there are high cases of robbery and burglary in the country. And if you look at the main causes, it's because of people during the lockdowns, people are told to go home with no sources of income and what. So now they are locked up. How do they survive? While those that were managing the COVID relief funds were becoming richer and richer. So it's just that, for me, when they say that Uganda is going ahead in terms of factories and what, these are factories that investors come and give tax holidays of 10 years, and the tax base is being narrowed. Or where most of these multinational companies, it's a select few from the first family that have shares. So I feel like on that point, he really misfired badly, and most Ugandans should know about the vast economic mismanagement that's happening back home, because it's one of the issues, let alone the side of the security issue, that's really crippling our country. Yeah, that's what I can say.
All right, thank you very much, John Paul, and
can
everyone.
Can I quickly clarify that
you have
the
1
the
minute.
aspect
Kennedy, you have 1 minute.
And very good. I think my brother needs to appreciate that a factory for which it stands for is a very good thing for the economic empowerment of Ugandans. And yes, granted, it is the foreigners who happen to have a lot of money, who have the capacity to invest in the machinery of the factories. And we will be appreciated by my brother, and the rest of the country should appreciate that whether the factory belongs to an Indian or a Chinese, it is on the grounds of Uganda, it is paying taxes, it is buying water, it is buying electricity, it is employing Ugandans, and we eventually benefit. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you very much. I just want us to know that as of 2020, 20, I think. We had about 29 political parties. We have political formations, pressure groups, and all these are trying to, make a name. This is why I'm saying that the political space is increasingly growing smaller, and therefore, if you're not strong enough, you might not, thrive in there. This is really entirely my thinking. But however, I would expect that for anybody to come onto the political field, they must strengthen their resilience to withstand the attacks through better collaboration, prediction of the realities ahead, and maybe adjusting their ways of operation to enable them deliver on their mandate. Considering that Uganda is quite complex and a bit fragile politically, that is what has been said. But let's move on. Let's move on to now Burashe. You all know that he's been in the political field longer than many people. And so on 7th October, he launched what we call the People's Front for Transition. He said that it was created to create actually a stronger political force. And if I am correct, it is made up of several parties that include Uganda People's Congress. However, there was an issue between Uganda People's Congress. There's an original one, and there's another one that is there's a whole lot of issues there. Then we have Conservative Party and JEMA. This is where, of course, the launch was put. But if we remember, there were activists for change, led protests. There were those walk to work, and so there were street-like, protests that kind of made some sort of they were trying to make a name. And now we had defiance at some point. There were people power, and right now we have a new one on the board. We have the People's Front for Transition. Is Burashe running out of ideas, or is he scared about the National Unity Platform taking over the political space that it has now really embraced? What would you say? I want to start with you, Miriam.
Mm-hmm. I want to comment based on what you have said, just like now that if you are forming a political organization in Uganda, you should come up with resilient measures to withstand the pressure and the terrain that you are going to be operating in. I think based on the existing political environment, a normal political party organization cannot thrive or do its activities normally. Even NUP has had most of its political players in prison, in drones, being held in safe houses for just being a member of opposition is tantamount to a crime in Uganda. It's a matter of when they are picking you or when they are sparing you. It's like if you step out, you'd never know when you're gonna get back home. So that's the reigning environment. So what resilient measures would you put in place? I think Ms. Lynn, Kizabesich is trying to answer your question or your point. He's trying to see how do you survive in such an environment. And what I've seen and heard, this political front, okay, I'm not talking for them. We expected a member who would explain more about it, and he didn't show up, Mr. Harold Kaija. But from what I've gathered, this political front is composed of different political players and from all age groups, including the civic leaders, the people from outside the political space, like the former Katikkiro of Uganda. And it's basically for mobilizing the political space out of the political parties. The question would be, are political parties no longer functioning in Uganda? Can they function normally in Uganda? And I hope maybe someone from NUP or ANT can answer that. Can you function normally as a political party based based on the laws given in the constitution in the current political environment in Uganda. So Kizza Besigye and the group, they have been putting up all those forums to resist the oppression, like Walk to Work, and these groups have had some little successes and failures. But they are the only groups which seem to even make something shift politically. The political parties can't do anything. And this is what we have seen ever since the last 20 or so years, the political parties have been operating alongside the NRM government. If you would look back when the movement was a system and today when we have political parties, actually there is no big difference from the political environment. The political parties seem to be paper tigers. The law doesn't allow them to do much, including mobilization for support or organizing for political mobilization across the country. They have the funding, the small funding that the parliament gave them according to the law, but is that enough? If they were to operate normally across the country, they would need more funding. They wouldn't need, but the business people who come out to support opposition, we all know what, if you come out openly to support opposition, you are an enemy of the NRM government. And that means they're gonna oppress you, suppress you, or do much more than that. And this is what we have seen all these years. So now that has deterred most private individuals from coming out openly to support opposition leaders. In such an environment, how would you move forward as a political organizer? For me, I think the Kizza Besigye and group really are doing the right thing and the right step in the right direction, given the reigning environment, the reigning political environment.
Okay, sorry, I had unmuted myself. Right, now over to you, Agnes. In 2011 and 2016, the Subi platform became active around Kampala, where the rise of pop star turned politician Robert Kyagulanyi, his People Power movement has occupied a significant amount of political space, the extent of being looked at as a threat by some circles, of course. Yes, we saw how all that played out. Question is, when Besigye rounded up all the opposition forces in the country to come up with the People's Front for Transition, National Unity Platform, the leading opposition political party at the moment, took a backstage. It didn't even show up at all. Are they scared of the force that Besigye is, or is there something we're not understanding here?
I'm smiling because you said scared of the force that Besigye is. Besigye is not a force. I disagree with that statement, and I say definitely no, he's not scared. So we are not acting in that. We are not. Our conduct is not because we are scared of the force. In fact, as you've heard over and over, NUP is very welcoming to any group and any person who aims for change of Uganda, aims for democratization, aims for change from NRM and the dynasty kind of leadership to giving power to the people and allowing people to take charge of their own country. That has been, NUP's goal, and it still remains, and that's why we have People Power, which is a pressure group that includes people who may not even belong to NUP necessarily, but rather work to see that change that we all see. Now, in terms of joining Dr. Besigye's PFT, That is a very interesting question. NUP has previously reached out several times on several occasions to include and to invite other members of the opposition, including Dr. Kizza Besigye. And we've seen that, in fact, our president, Mr. Chagulanyi, met with Dr. Besigye and a lot of other political opposition members, and discussions happened, and NUP has been welcoming and inviting them to join or to work together, including really close to the elections, where it was very clear from the rallies we were holding across the country, in all different parts of the country, northeast, west, central, that Mr. Chagulanyi had all the support of the people, and he was a leading candidate. And so we welcomed other opposition members to join, so that we have one candidate to run and represent the opposition, and they were not willing to do so. And now to come out and say that they're now starting this this movement, and that NUP, which was thrown under the bus before, that it should actually be the one joining them. I think that's disingenuous. I pause to say, I probably would say we would NUP is operating from a standpoint of caution. We do not know how people, why they are changed heart and want to formulate this group. We don't know we don't know specifically what their goals are. And as we've seen with the politics of Uganda, where political opportunists move to a different angle, it's warranted for anyone, before you associate yourself with a group, to first find out who they are and what they stand for. And I think that's really what NUP is doing. We've seen leaders like Betty Kamia, who was formerly she was in FDC, ran as an MP for FDC, represented FDC. Now where is she? She's a minister serving in the NRM regime. So we've seen a lot of, and I think all of you know how powerful we all thought Betty Kamia was, and in terms of opposition a couple of decades ago. And to see that, and we know that time tells, doing this as a job and as a career, they are not looking to represent and foster democracy in Uganda. They're looking at their careers and how do they benefit personally. And that's why it's very worrisome where the opposition is going, and we're working cautiously. Again, we're not bad mouthing them, and we're not going to say we don't support them. We hope that their agenda is actually to change the country and to bring democracy, and we'll be on board if they do so. But at this point, there is a lot of doubt given their conduct.
All right, thank you very much, Agnes. Kennedy, no, before I get to Kennedy, sorry, John Paul. John Paul, we have seen that there were many formations. There were many you're probably still a millennial. You have seen quite a number of pressure groups come on board and go. But have we seen tangible results from, say, People's Government, that came into existence following Dr. Kizza Besigye's decision to swear himself in as winner of the 2016 presidential elections? What has happened to previous campaigns? We had Tubale Mese, there was also Kweruaneko, there was also Walk to Work, Defiance. There have been quite a number of them. Would you say that with these groups, with these pressure groups, as they want to be called, we saw People Power movement. It also had its own good stuff that came on board or not. Do we really need these pressure groups? And do they really, at the end of the day, do they deliver anything?
Thank you. I've always believed that the main goal of the pressure groups is to start a revolution. I started taking note of them in 2011 with the Walk to Work protest. That was during the Arab Spring. Then it went to 2016 TDA, and then 2019 just say 2019 Day of Action, then to Vale MSA, then is other thing. I think it's to the way I see it is to stop people's anger towards and for them to be the vehicle of people's frustration towards the government, and for the people to rally them around them. My disagreement with that strategy is that it kind of makes the struggle a bit violent, because you tell people defiance, you tell people don't do this, don't do this, it's government, don't buy this, don't buy this, don't do this, don't do this. It will affect the common person, based whether he's government or anti-government, or maybe these other violent acts of. I'm not saying they're violent. One of some of their measures seem to be tending to some of boycott and violence and stuff like that. So to me, that method can work, though people say there was Sudan, there was Zimbabwe, there was, why it worked. But I think with Ugandan situation, you're giving the regime legitimacy to increase on their security spending and their crackdown, especially when you do it in such a way. Dr. Bessege's groups, as I said, he has been forming them here and there. I always believe a united opposition is the best chance to remove the president. If you look at the gap between the president and this second challenger, Mr. Chagulanyi, it was a balance of, I think, 3 million or 2 million votes. If you had decided to add the rest of the 10 candidates and maybe, I don't know, add the issues of vote stuffing and rigging, maybe if the 58 would have gone to 49 and have a runoff. But I believe that for us as our party, as ANTS, we believe in united opposition is where because we're all fighting for the same thing. If you're all fighting for the same thing, no one is better than the other. So we support these associations of opposition-minded people to come together and build ideas and form a joint struggle to liberate our country. However, as Miss Agnes Adaya stated, you have to be cautious about, some of their tactics or maybe some of the personalities involved, and because as I've seen over the years, they have been failing. They just last like 2 months and then it's gone. It's just a facade. So you have to take your time. We're taking our time. Right now, we're doing some policy groundwork, grassroots groundwork. Then we shall see if we can join, but we support them. We support these parties and we support the unity of the opposition. That's what I can say.
All right. Thank you very much, John Paul. Now, Kennedy, you have a lot to tell us here. One, the National Unity Platform has refused, well, I don't know if I should use refuse, but has not joined the pressure group. And we have seen that also Miriam actually just highlighted in the chat room that National Unity Platform has equally turned down a request for them to join IPOD. Now, IPOD brings together all party groups, especially those political parties in parliament. It has refused. The DP the other day said though they support unity, the People's Front for Transition was rather rushed and not given enough time before unveiling. So they are reluctant to join efforts with Dr. Bessege's in his meaningful coalitions, but they say it is built on flimsy grounds. Now, Kennedy, we have seen these pressure groups before, you as NRM. We have seen that they have come and gone. Maybe most of them, I don't know if they have achieved their agenda or their mandate. Someone was actually commenting and saying Besige needs to persuade more grandeur, opposition political organizations and opinion leaders, if he's to, make sense of his vettest, front, if it makes sense. But now I think people are just looking at him as just trying to be relevant. You as the NRM, you have seen enough of these pressure groups. Like, I don't want to go back into listing them. They're quite a number. Are you scared as the NRM? Are you like, oh, we're used to that? I mean, you have no future with that. We have seen that. It will also go. We are here to stay. Or are you ready and set to now stifle that front as well?
Certainly not stay. I think this answers two areas. One, it answers to the fact that there is political space. So I'll go back to that, where people are participating depending on where they seem to gain traction. Because ideally, this collaboration, this collage of so many groups is a sign of weakness, in part to say, I have failed and I have surrendered. So I need all of you here. So they care less for the details in each one's agenda. Now, that is one. Two, it also demonstrates the weakness in the opposition, where the only agenda they have is to remove the president, because that is their obsession. Remove the president. Now, once he's gone, then, because recently I saw Dr. Besigye answering questions, and they say, who is leading this front? And says, we don't have a leader. See, on Mr. Kamara's show, and it's like, how can you have a front without leadership? It's like, oh, we will move and we shall find out. Now, right there from the onset, you appreciate a very, very big problem pending. So, and by the way, if you think about it, Uganda's politics didn't start with political parties. We fought a revolutionary war. We had many briefcase fighters in the bush and many sections of fighting groups. But guess what? They were lost, in the midst of the struggle, because it became too hot and they couldn't stand the heat. So NRA back then, had a clear agenda and it won the struggle. It won the war. Now here we are. We are still witnessing political actors failing to organize people. Remember, this is the best time in the history of the world, for that matter, where your information can be listened to throughout the country at the maximum speed. You can email, you can WhatsApp, you can make a phone call, you can use a radio, you can go on TV, and all these platforms are in use. But even with that, the opposition has not been able to demonstrate to Ugandans their agenda. And instead, I have seen Dr. Besigye again, very, very angry about the elites. He thinks they don't get it. And my question to him was, what if they get it that you don't get it? You see, so this is the biggest weakness they are in, where you have all these players, they are scared of each other. You have NOP scared of FDC, FDC is scared of NOP. And as NRM, we are monitoring the space. But for us, it tells us that we are doing exactly what we're supposed to do. If there was anything to do with an agenda that Ugandans want, it shouldn't be of any struggle. NRM has the majority in the parliament from across the country. And by the way, I've seen people blame the country, blame the government for having so many representatives in the parliament. Our approach was to empower a Ugandan, to say, send your representative. And Uganda is a collection of so many sections of the country, and we felt it was an imperative that these people needed their representation. And again, NRM has showcased the majority in the parliament. Right or wrong, whether you like them or not, they were sent by their people, and we stand behind their people. So when you look at all these arrangements, they tell you one thing, that they are struggling to gain traction because there has been a mistake, an error in judgment to judge Uganda on the same scale as Sudan or Egypt or Libya or any other country. Uganda has its own story. Now, if something happened in Sudan and you wanted to transplant that into Uganda, you will fail because Uganda has its own, own DNA. Now, once upon a time, and I think this is for purposes of learning, once upon a time we had military coups in Africa, and they were the thing of the time. And the weaknesses therein were observed. So from there, then you had people who felt that street mobs would remove governments, and some countries succeeded with that. And then we had copycats, walk to work, let's go remove the dictator, let's go remove the government. And in the process, they have found a very, very infertile ground in Uganda for that kind of politics. So this time around, I am looking at these people transitioning from that understanding of politics to say, you know what, perhaps it's about time that we organize ourselves into a serious political group that will represent people in a more sane way. So, and yes, the space is there, and we appreciate them as a competitor. We don't downplay them. The only thing is that we stand strong and tall and tell the world that we are the best party yet. So for all the style of competition, they can bring it on. But for me, what again I pride my country for is that there is this space and there is this game that is played called the political game. And the participants, as you named them, they are very many. Now, because some of them feel they are too small to stand up, they have to cling to others for survival. And that's, well, strategically, maybe it's not a terribly wrong thing to do, but whether they win or not, history will tell. But for the start, we need to appreciate that NRM has been clean from day one, and our agenda is the same. We are progressing, and I think if they can't copy what NRM is doing, they may get it wrong again and again. That is my thinking. And yes, we can posture, we can come here and talk about government this, government that, and I think we need to also look beyond Uganda. We are in the United States, for example, and two parties have been here for a very long time. Not because other parties didn't want to appear, but I think every time they come up, they realize that the Democratic Party is stronger and the Republican Party is stronger, so that they can't fit in. Before you know it, these parties have come again and again to be the strongest parties in the United States, not because there are no other alternative parties, but they never make it through. And there is a possibility that in Uganda, sooner or later, there will be all these parties swallowed into one party, and subsequently they will be competing with NRM, which is here to stay. And all I can beg of my fellow Ugandans is to elevate the discussion, to debate, because a debate is as good as the participants. If all we do is accuse, complain without solutions. I don't think we can go anywhere. For NRM, we are giving solutions. Okay, we are saying people are poor. What do? We create jobs. How do we do it? We build factories. We build electricity. We build road networks. We empower people with water. We empower people with funding for small, medium projects. So all these things are happening. But on the other end, you find people who are complaining, talking about the problem. Yes, the problems will be here. If you go to Rome, there are problems. Okay. So, yes.
All right, thank you very much, Kennedy. I want us to quickly also run to this issue of bail. Now, there were proposals that, of course, following President Museveni's speech some time back when he said that, capital offenders do not deserve bail because they have created a sense of mob justice in communities. That was his one part of his statement. But then now it went on to, he consulted members of parliament on the NRM, and they were divided on the issue, but then went ahead to cabinet. Now, cabinet recently, in a leaked document, we have seen that the Attorney General is writing and saying that on reforming laws relating to bail and police bond, it is expected these proposals will be taken to Parliament in form of a bill to, among others, outlaw bail and police bond for capital offenders up to a period of 6 months. Now, if we can visit the Constitution just a little bit, I want us to be well acquainted with what bail in our Constitution looks like. The right to apply for bail is a fundamental right guaranteed by Article 23(6) of the 1995 Constitution, which says where a person is arrested in respect of a criminal offense, that person is entitled to apply to the court to be released on bail, and the court may grant that person bail on such conditions as the court considers reasonable. I'm certain most of you have acquainted yourselves with the Constitution. Now, the public is divided on these matters. People are saying this is unfair, this is unconstitutional. It looks like they want to touch the Constitution again and again. Recently, I was hearing from the retired Justice of the Supreme Court, Professor George Kanyehamba. Now, he said if this is brought to Parliament and Parliament pushes through and they scrap bail for capital offenders, it would be an affront on the Constitution that must be resisted by all Ugandans. Miriam, if I could come to you, you're into civil society, you're into law and all those things. I mean, the president has a point, okay? He has a point. The Constitution is there. Ugandans equally are divided on this, but how do we proceed? In the event that it goes to Parliament, and parliamentarians are like, okay, fine, the president has brought it. I mean, he has a point, let's go. What is likely to happen?
When it comes to Uganda, the way it is, I don't see them disagreeing with the president a lot. You see, that's the problem we have today. When we are talking of the political space becoming so narrow, other players have been suppressed to the point that now we have like NRM being the legislature, they are dominating the judiciary, they are dominating everything, and whatever they suggest goes. Whatever the president wants, he gets. If he doesn't get it, he will arrest whoever challenges him, like we saw during the lift of the age limit and the term limits, until he gets whatever he wants. So today we've reached the extent where we have rigged elections, which bring only people who support the sitting government. We have the parliament, which is more like a rubber stamp. I don't want to call them rubber stamp, but they are, it's like the membership there was got in a way which was not free and fair. So the elections largely favored the ruling government. in default, it's like the ruling government appointed the current parliament. So how do you expect them to oppose their appointed, quote unquote, their appointed leader? So I don't see them opposing whatever the president puts on the table. Even if he says, let's suspend the constitution altogether, they would still say yes. So where is hope for Uganda? What about those who disagree with whatever the president is saying? Will the constitutional court, I saw a petition by Justice Kanyamba, will the constitutional court obey the law and international statutes and stop the parliament? Because bail, the right to bail is enshrined in the international laws of human rights and freedoms of people. So it's not about Ugandan constitution alone, but all the other statutes that support the bills of rights for all humans. So will the constitutional court go against the president? Because if they do, they have been going against him on the same case. I think they pronounced themselves on the same matter, like 2005. I'm not so sure about that, but I think they did it before. Will they do it again? You see, when we talk of shrinking political space, that's what it is. The space is there, but it's a space of one player. Any other voice doesn't have an opportunity to thrive. You will be suppressed. Either they deny you even media. We know opposition doesn't even access some media stations. If they go on a talk show, the RDC will tear gas them. And even that answers to what Mr. Kennedy Burashe was saying, that where is the agenda of the opposition? You are not selling it to the public. How should they sell it to the public? By going on the street and hawking like vendors? Will the NRM allow them even to appear anywhere? So what type of political space are we talking about? Who is going to operate in that space? Even people who go on social media and even compose a song to criticize the ruling government get arrested. So where is the space? And how are we going to voice the alternative opinions? Being opposition is not a crime. It's just disagreeing with whatever the ruling government is doing. So in that aspect, it's like, and I think the president is pushing for this with all the confidence, knowing that he's gonna go through despite all the challenges and the negative side of whatever he's pushing for, because he has never done it before. And if you see like the political timelines, he pushes all these draconian laws immediately after elections. When he has beaten all the opposition and arrested most of them, when he has rigged the elections, that's when he pushes through with the uncomfortable political side of the NRM, so that the coming election, it's like in advance, he's rigging for the next elections in the next 5 years. He has started today. So the constitution will be amended if it goes to the parliament, yes. And that would be a very, very unfortunate. I hope the constitutional court, which is like the alternative voice, is able to stand up and support the human rights, because bail is a right. And it doesn't mean that if you apply for bail, you get it. The courts still have a discretion. And if they see that you are a danger to the society, they wouldn't give you the bail. So instead of the president pushing the change of the law, why doesn't he empower the DPP to come up with the evidence enough to convince the court that the person who is applying for bail is a danger to the society, so that the court doesn't give him bail? It's like, actually, this push of cancellation of the bail and whatever is undermining the judiciary in Uganda. It's like telling them that you don't know what you are doing. And on record, they say that people denied bail are even more than those who are granted bail. It's not like whoever applies for bail gets it. And another challenge we have, it's been said over and over again, is like the backlog in the judiciary. If you're on remand, you are a suspect. It doesn't mean that you are guilty already. So if they don't want to give you bail, let them take you to court, or let them not arrest you until they have investigated enough to have enough evidence, so that when you are taken to prison, you are taken to court and your case is heard. If you are guilty, you are sentenced. If you are not guilty, you are set free. In that case, if there is a speedy trial, you don't even need to apply for bail. So the whole thing is like a political process. It's like doing politics through the law, through abusing the laws. And for me, what I fear most is that the target would be the politicians, not the criminals, because we have seen political players, the political leaders being accused of trumped-up charges. Kizza Besigye was accused of rape, treason, whatever, name it, and he has never been proven guilty in any court. Even the DPP lies on oath to make him go through such an ordeal. So what will happen if they deny him bail and say, like the last case of treason, which he was charged in 2016, and the case was dismissed in 2021. Suppose he has been on remand all these 6 years or so. So those are the challenges. And I think as opposition, you don't have to sit back and wait for the worst to happen.
Right.
It's time to push back and, don't let the small freedom that is there being taken back by the leader who is ready to take whatever space you give him, whether it belongs to him or not.
All right. Thank you very much, Miriam, for that input. Now, over to you, Agnes. We have seen that Uganda is part of the international community and therefore bound by the agreements and protocols it has signed. That is one. Two, Lukwago, who is also the deputy to Besigye's new PPF, it says that every well-meaning Ugandan should stand up and resist the move to outlaw bail for capital offenders, saying anyone is a potential victim of the law. You as people in National Unity Platform, well, we have seen many political people come on board and say, no, this is wrong, this is wrong. But what have you to say and how best do we move? Because we know once this goes to Parliament, chances are very high that it will go through. And once it goes through, then you and I, of course, are going to be in trouble. Yeah, because anybody can be a victim. So how are we supposed to approach this? Or how are you as the opposition approaching this? Let me remind those of you in attendance that you can also go to the chat room to share your question or comment that we shall be raising later. Agnes, please.
Thank you. Yes, Uganda is part of the international community in general and part of a lot of protocols of the United Nations. And on paper, Uganda has a lot of laws and protections that guarantee human rights. In application, that is non-existent. Uganda does not apply the laws that it has on paper. In fact, we have seen the move that's going on right now to amend the law to take away the possibility of bail for people being prosecuted for capital offenses. That is something that was already in application. That has been going on. A lot of people, for instance, during the last election, many of our comrades in NOP were arrested. Most of them spent almost a year in jail without being properly tried. And sometimes when they were offered bail and left to go, the military or the police will come and capture them right outside the court and take them back into detention. So a lot of we've had LC local government leaders who are elected who didn't assume office until very recently, and some of them in fact haven't. We've had comrades like Serunkuma John Bosco, who was arrested and has spent over a year in detention without properly being charged. So this has been happening. What the government is doing right now is to formalize its conduct. So it's not new that Uganda hasn't been applying the laws that they have on paper. We have a lot of laws. In fact, if we look at our laws, if they were applied, Uganda would look very different. We would have due process. People people who are convicted would be able to apply for bail and get it. And I think it goes back to what Miriam said. The bail application is not a guaranteed. It's not a guarantee. So what the government is trying to do right now, they've already done. They've taken away the powers and the authority of the judiciary. We've seen that in so many instances. Like I just explained how they grant bail and then the government arrests the person right after. But again, it goes back to undermining the judiciary, where, you know, again, the bail is in the discretionary power of the court, and for the government, the NRM government, to come in and say that now we think that you don't know how to apply that discretion, therefore we are taking away the possibility of you even having the hearings, the bail application hearings. That is an insult to the judiciary. But that is not new for the NRM. It has undermined the parliament. It has undermined the judiciary. And, you know, both bodies of the government operate as extensions of the NRM, of the State House. And we've had so many cases. We've heard of so many cases where a person is arrested, but the arresting officer doesn't know why person is being arrested, but rather it's orders, and I quote, orders from above. So those kinds of, that kind of conduct has been happening, where the two other parties, other branches of the government, which are supposed to operate independently and have checks and balances in place, are actually have been changed to be an extension of one branch of government. We have one branch of government that's operating right now, and that is the dictatorial executive. And I would like to point out, it's a very interesting discussion. But what the dictatorship doesn't recognize right now is that sooner or later they're going to fall victim of this law that they're enacting. I bet, you know, I think Mr. Museveni is probably aging and he won't be here much longer to see what's happening. But even his family will fall victim. I think that in a lot of cases, his family has been involved in a lot of conduct that has robbed lives of Ugandans. And so many other crimes that they have castigated. So the family, the friends, the in-laws, they have a lot of crimes that I think if they look in hindsight and try to see what they are enacting, this is a law that is going to come back to hand them down. And if they think that they're enacting it to operate for the next 5 years, I think that they should think twice. This is a crumbling dynasty, and it's clear by all means the Museveni government has been rejected by the citizens of Uganda in bold daylight, and so their existence is a day-by-day kind of existence. And so anytime from now, that dynasty is going to collapse. And they're going to these laws that they're enacting are going to come back to hunt them down, and then at that point they'll realize that they created the beast that has swallowed them up. So again, that is an interesting debate to to look at. These laws that they're enacting right now definitely are aimed at curbing the opposition and trying to, it's another stringent measure against any political dissent in the country. But sooner or later, these laws are going to be used. These laws are universal, so they're not going to right now. They're not going to be applied to the governments of the NRM. But sooner or later, when the proper leadership comes into place, these laws will be used and they'll be part of the constitution. They will rightfully be applied, and that will involve and include them.
Muted. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Agnes. Kennedy, over to you. In the proposals prepared for cabinet consideration, the Attorney General, Kyomugasho, proposes that Article 23(6)(b) of the Constitution be amended to provide that a person accused of committing a criminal offense presented by both the High Court and subordinate courts shall not be granted bail until after 180 days or trial commencement, or when the Director of Public Prosecutions discontinues proceedings, whichever is earlier. In the problem statement, the Attorney General argues in the memo that bail ideally should balance the interests of the accused, public interest in regard to peace and safety, as well as the right of victims' safety, rather victims of crime. Now, many Ugandans, including legal scholars and practitioners, of course, I want to re-echo that they're led by the former Attorney General and retired Supreme Court Judge, Justice George Kanihamba, who chaired the Legal and Drafting Committee of the during 1993 to 1995 Constituent Assembly that promulgated Uganda's current supreme law, have warned that the president is treading a dangerous path because bail is a settled matter in law. Kennedy, if we go on like this, are we not losing focus as a government? Are we not chasing the wind when there's lots of other things to do?
Certainly not. You see, it comes back to the story of debate. I don't know why people are scared of debate, because the president did not exert his presidential powers and imposed himself on the people of Uganda. He proposed from his position, from what he's listening to across the country. And I need to correct you. When you say the majority, I think that's a little not correct. I think the majority of the people are our citizens and not the other class of the legal players and social activists, all these groups. Now, I think what is true is that this is a very, very interesting debate because certainly it touches the Constitution, but it is a debate worth having. I'll give you an example. After the genocide of Rwanda, the government of Rwanda instituted the Gacaca legal system, which, according to President Kagame, was the African solutions to Africa's problems. Now, he appreciated the lengthy processes of our modern legalities, but it had to be in relation to what the majority of the citizens are looking at. So the president is saying, by the time someone is pointed at as a murderer, as a rapist, there is the minimum 25% from the local citizens. At least they know something that they suggest to the police, they report to the police, and the police takes it to add on that investigation. Now, when these people see the same person coming back the next morning, it begs for answers to those people. Now, I can appreciate the opposition to be on this, to say, you know what, don't worry about that. After all, when the people get mad, they don't get mad about the judiciary, about the judge who released these people. They get mad about the president and his party and the government. So they are clapping and celebrating for this error that is plugged in our system. And the president is saying, fine, it is very okay to appreciate the freedoms of this person, of the suspect. But alongside that, we should be cognizant of the fact that there are those people who lost someone and they have a feeling that this person committed the crime. So how are you collaborating the two? How are you merging these two areas to make sense of our society? So this is the debate. This is where we are. We cannot emphasize one and forget the other. Yes, we want someone to be free, you know, because my sister Agnes warned that these laws will be used against, I don't know why she cares very much about the family of the president and the people in the government. But granted as it may, it also tells you that her government, which she supposes will be the next government, will be using these laws, you know, to tramp on the rights of the people in government today. So other than that, why would you care? You know, if anyone is suspected of killing somebody, at least, you know, because by the time someone, I am an old man for what I stand for, I've never been suspected of raping anybody, and not everybody loves me. I don't think so. But they don't have a basis to allege that I killed anybody. Now, by the time you are suspected and there are people behind the suspicion that you killed somebody, then I think waiting for some days shouldn't be the worst thing to happen. All that put together, this is a debate, and it is held in Uganda by Ugandans within the quarters of the parliament. Okay, this is where we have the debates. So the culture of debate should be appreciated. That is point number one. Point number two, the Constitution cannot and will never be left alone. We are entering a speedy time in the history of humanity where things are changing very, very fast. So it is even a fallacy to imagine that the Constitution will never be touched 2 years from today or 3 years from now, because what we considered then has shifted tremendously. Okay, yes, we are debating, we are having issues, very, very serious issues with homosexuality, with the LGBT community. 20 years ago, it was nowhere to be talked about. Today, you have to watch out what you say, how you say it, and to whom you say it to. So why? Because of the changing times. And will this touch our laws? Most likely. So when we insist on the weight of the Constitution and forgetting the changing times we are dealing with, I think that is very wrong. We need to incorporate everything that happens, but most importantly, to give powers to those people who feel victimized. And when the suspect is left alone, it creates hell for them. I think that's important to debate. It is not a weak position for the president to suggest this debate. Now, how much it will go is still in the hands of Ugandans. This is not, we are not dealing with the foreign section of Uganda, of people who are debating issues for Ugandans. It is a set of Ugandans who were sent to debate, and they will take care of this. So I don't find any problem with it. You know, that's my position. I don't want to throw this back and forth, but I want, while we are debating this, to be cognizant of the fact that someone loses a person and they see the suspect back home, threatening them, terrorizing them, bribing, the would-be witnesses. That is very, very important to appreciate.
All right, thank you very much, Kennedy. We are time is up. We are at, it is 4, but I don't want to leave without hearing from John Paul. John Paul, as we wind up, the opposition in particular, and everyone is seemingly arguing about this issue of court bail. And we all know that what has been happening in our communities because of court bails, actually in some instances, the opposition has also been affected by this similar problem. But because they feel they should argue and oppose the government so that the media captures them in the news, this is what subsections of the public are saying. We also know that the Bible says that whoever kills with a sword should also die by a sword. John Paul, I need you to, what do you have to say about this as we wind up?
All I'm to say is that seems Uganda's political system is one man, and what he thinks is what happens on paper and what is law. Well, there are some good parts of the thing. I wouldn't say it's all totally bad. There are some good parts, as my previous brother has stated. But right now, we have to look, most likely, I would believe, and I strongly believe, it's more targeted to the attribute of treason and murder, of which most cases you've known the acts of treason have been mainly politically motivated. And as Madam Miriam had said, if Komugisha was indicted of treason in 2016, he would just have been released. So I think it's more of a political maneuver by the president, but he's using the cliche of public anger towards the downsides of bail. Because I think bail was initiated, one of the reasons is to avoid overcrowding in prisons. So I don't know if now they have built more prisons in the country that now they can allow more inmates. And I think when my previous brother said that it's Ugandans to decide right now, I've always believed that everything constitutional should have been done through a referendum. Parliament is just a group of caucus, the NRM caucus, they go Chankwanzi, get around 30 million saying you're going to your constituency, and basically it's just theirs to eat. And they come the next day and say, yes, yes, yes. They have not consulted anyone. Basically, it's not their idea, but they're following the party line. So I don't see that as Ugandans deciding. I see that as a party or a select few deciding. So I don't know why we don't do major things concerning the constitution through a referendum. I think that one would even more, it would even show the person at the grassroots level that he took part and that he has a say in issues affecting this country. So to me, that's what I can say about the issue.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our conversation, but I'm sure most of you have maybe one or two things to say. Thank you for attending. First of all, those of you who've been attending, I see Chris, thank you, Jim Jones, Monica, Mukasa, all of you, thank you, and of course the panelists. But as we wind up, as we step out, Agnes quickly in 1 minute, and also Miriam as well, and then Kennedy, and then we will call it a day.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for the discussion. I would like to conclude by saying that there is a common saying: injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Again, I don't say this because I care about the people perpetrating the violence going on in Uganda right now, but because I worry that the same law that they're enacting, I think they're not thinking well. That's all I can say. I think I'm warning them to look at this, look at it twice, and consider that this is going to be used against them. I would also like to point out that the parliament that we've been informed that there is a parliament, but we all know that the parliament has changed, especially after Nook got involved into politics, where initially candidates for parliament were paid, I think, about 3 million to run for parliament. And during the last election, all of a sudden, candidates had to pay 20 million to even run as candidates. Now, 20 million for a common person who wants to advance the goals of democracy in his or her region, that is not simple money to raise. And so, of course, that deterred a lot of people, well-intentioned people, not to point out that NRM went ahead and used our taxpayer money to pay for their MPs. So it's not shocking that NRM has a lot of MPs in parliament, not mentioning the fact that our MPs were not allowed to campaign freely. They were not allowed to move around. Most of them spent their campaign period in detentions, and a lot of other deterrences like that. So for us to sit around and pretend that we have a parliament that functions for Ugandans, we have people who are paid by the NRM initially 20 million and then campaign money, and then the NRM continues to pay them as we go to have them pass certain laws that favor the party and favor the ruling dynasty. So again, let's not pretend that these people are working for the country and they're advancing goals of Ugandans. This is a group of people who have been, whose intentions, whose motives are clear, and that is to keep the NRM government in power. But again, I'm not scared. I encourage all people. I think that this is a new era and Ugandans are woke and they know what's going on. They can see through all the pretenses and all the nonsense the NRM has thrown at us. And so we are strong. And I encourage every Ugandan to keep working hard to free our country, because our country is under captivity right now.
All right. Thank you very much, Agnes. Miriam, quickly.
To conclude, I would like to reiterate what John Paul said. The Ugandan opposition needs to unite in order to move forward, because the challenges are not easy to navigate as a single party. And the more they divided, the more they're gonna be crushed and eliminated from the political processes. So the unity, whether it's the political front or whether they create another front or whatever way they want to unite, I think uniting is the best way forward. And on the bail cancellation, I would like to call upon all Ugandans. The NRM will come and go. The leaders come and go, but Ugandans are here to stay. We should put people's lives forward. Whether people are in opposition, whether they are in ruling government, their rights and their freedoms matter more important than our small political interests. Let's not be selfish. Let's aim at building Uganda as a country where everybody is free to associate, free to express themselves and participate in building the nation. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you very much, Miriam. Kennedy, are you there quickly in a minute and we get out here?
Yes, very, very, very quickly. I thank you very much. And just for a lesson, this kind of discussion is what we hope for in our political space. No name calling, no belittling, no fighting. I appreciate that we can come here and express our opinions willfully and peacefully. That's one. Two, I wanted to correct my sister Agnes about the awakening of Ugandans. Ugandans have been awake for a long time. We fought a revolutionary war. That was a very, very big awakening. So, and another point I wanted to talk about the unitary force that has come in the opposition. Once upon a time, one said that slice my pizza in two because I'm not hungry. You know? Now, you can slice it any way you want. The size is the same. So the opposition can add its pieces together, but it is just that small piece, that small size of the opposition. So that's what you end up with. You know, all forces together, you end up with the same piece of the same. And another point to talk about is, I saw the president, the former president of Singapore, said that we arrested them even without evidence. So the mere act, the mere fact of suspicion was sufficient to get you arrested. And it is perhaps why we celebrate Singapore, as a success story. Now, sometimes we can talk about the legalities, who did what, and they are all good. But we must embrace all this in the face of the realities we live in. We cannot avoid that and succeed. Okay. I thank you very much. Right.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. John Paul, do you have anything to say as we conclude?
For the interest of time, I won't say. All has been said.
All right. Thank you very much. I see Harold Kaija has joined us pretty late. We are done with the show. Perhaps we will catch you some other time, Harold Kaija. And thank you very much to you, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to be part of this conversation. These conversations will keep going on, but we need to continue the engagements in social media as well as YouTube. And thank you very much. I'll catch you next time, I hope. And do have yourselves a good morning, good afternoon. Here we are almost in the evening. So see you next time.